Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on a beautiful Tuesday evening to talk some Steelers football. The Steelers are 3-1. It's the bye week. The Ravens are cooked. The Bengals are cooked. The Browns are cooked. It's a good day to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I mean, every day's a good day to be a Steelers fan, but especially today, folks. All right, so we got some great content coming your way over the next hour or so. We got the latest Steelers news and rumors. We got a great update on the Calvin Austin III injury status today. We also got some interesting stuff to talk about in that first segment. Then we'll get into some Steelers trade candidates this year. I've got 3 players on the Steelers right now that the Steelers could use as trade pieces to maybe go out and get a top-flight wide receiver before the deadline this year. And then I'll have my updated Steelers record prediction at the end of today's show. Now that we're at the bye week and we have started the season off 3-1, I'm going to take another look at the Steelers' schedule here, and I'm going to predict the final record for our Pittsburgh Steelers by the end of this season, all right? So make sure you guys strap yourselves in. It's going to be a fun show, but I want to see who the real ones are down there in the comment section. Get the party started right now by spamming those me's down there in the comment section. Eric Brown says, hi, Jack Sperry. What's up, Eric? Good to see you. Joe Moss is saying, what up, Jack? What's up, Joe? We got Chuck Dugan. Got Eugene Payne. Jamming with Jammer is here. Sully McCauley's here. Chuck Dugan. We got Robert Maxwell. Czar Craig is here. Brock Walker. James C. We've got Javon. We got Mike. We've got Voxy. We got James C. We've got Rez. We've got Jonathan. We got Kermit is my God. We got Steelers fan 151. We've got Anthony Luke. We got Ragu. We've got Mr. Moblin. Got Mr. Basketball Cards. We got Collapse Throne, otherwise known as Fernando Martin. Of course, we got my lovely fiance, Cassie Voth, in the chat as well. We've got Alex. We've got Lonnie. We've got Clifford. We got Gen05. We got Alex. We've got Michael, Alex, Steve, Jack Hay, Justin Sayers here. Hip Hop Anonymous is here. We've got Joe Brown, Greg Bryant, we got Alex Perea, we got Tyler Heaton. Got a really good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some football here today. Over 200 people in the chat already, and we already got our first super chat as well that we'll get to here momentarily. But let us know down there in the comment section, what is your confidence level in Roman Wilson as the interim wide receiver 2 now that Calvin Austin III, at least for the time being, is not in the lineup? Producer Ponsi, how we doing today, my friend?
We're doing pretty good. You know, every day is a good day, especially when the Steelers are 3-1.
Absolutely. So what is your thoughts on Roman Wilson as the wide receiver 2? He has 1 catch this year, and it was in garbage time when the defense was playing off coverage. It was like the easiest catch he's ever going to have his entire career, and that's his only catch to this point. And now, do we really trust him to step into that role that Calvin Austin III fills for this offense? I would say, you're going up against the Browns and the Bengals coming up next, and I would assume by Packers week Calvin is back. So maybe you can sit there and say, well, the opponents they're playing are not fantastic, so we can afford to not make a move at receiver, at least not right now, and we can get by with Roman Wilson. But what are your thoughts on Roman Wilson right now?
I mean, it just says a lot whenever Calvin goes down in the game, and we're all thinking, Roman Wilson, this is finally his shot. He's going to prove to the Steelers brass that, he can be that wide receiver too, and that he can step up into that role. But then immediately Scotty Miller comes into the game. And it's just like, I like Roman Wilson. I think he has a great skill set. I mean, he's been nothing but a hard worker so far, apparently. But, I mean, it's just, I don't know if they just don't believe in him, or if they just, don't want to put him out there in the game plan last week. But, I mean, it's just not really good for Roman's confidence, especially if Scotty Miller is getting more reps than you, when you're expected to be that wide receiver 3, even wide receiver 2 in some plays. So, I mean, I'm sitting at probably like a 4.
Yeah.
Just based off of like how the Steelers have used him. I need to see more, but apparently he's not even good enough to see more. Yeah,
I would say this. My confidence level is relatively low because they just haven't used him this year. So if you're not using him, there's a reason for that. But my excitement level, I would say, is relatively high because I think the Steelers can get by, especially these next 2 games. You got the Browns and you've got the Bengals, and you can't take anyone lightly in the National Football League, especially not divisional opponents. But at the same time, I do think that, with DK on the team, with Muth on the team, with Jonnu on the team, with the jumbo formations that they were using, and that I assume they're going to continue using as the season goes on, putting Spencer Anderson out there in the run game on early downs, That's going to take a lot of the pressure off of Roman Wilson as he, it might get asked here to play a game or two as this team's interim wide receiver too. We did get some good news on Calvin Austin III. It doesn't sound like his injury is too serious. It's certainly not as serious as Jerry Dulac made it sound like in his original report. But, if Roman has to be the wide receiver too for these next 2 weeks, I think the Steelers are going to be fine. I'm still going to pick the Steelers to win both against Cleveland and Cincinnati. Those teams are down bad right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Roman can do because I think that the Steelers are going to win these football games anyway. So I feel like, you're kind of playing with house money here, seeing what Roman Wilson can do in an elevated role. So I'm excited about it. All right, go ahead. What's that?
I said Dillon Gabriel does not scare us.
Dillon Gabriel does not scare me. By the way, if you didn't hear the news, Dillon Gabriel expected to be the starting quarterback this week for the Browns, which of course means he's expected to be the starter next week when he plays the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Mike Tomlin has an excellent record against rookie quarterbacks. I think it's like over 90% win rate versus rookies under center. And then also he's got, obviously he's awesome with a bye. We'll go over the numbers with Mike Tomlin coming off a bye. It's excellent. And then also they're home. And, they just got every advantage in this football game. So, Joey Porter Jr. will be back. He might not be without Jalen Ramsey or Calvin Austin III, but I still think the Steelers certainly have the advantages here. We got a Venmo here. That we'll get to here momentarily. I'll send this to you, Ponsi.
Go ahead.
All right. That is sent. All right, so if you guys want to donate to the show, we already have a couple of donations already, but if we can get to $100 in donations on today's show, we will give away one of these Steelers Talk hats in a raffle. We've got a donation menu today, guys. If you want to get in on the raffle, $5 to get in, $10 to get 3 raffle tickets, $20 gets you 10 tickets, plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong, and you can become a member of Gong Squad. And then, you know what? I'm going to make a deal today. Every $100 we make today, I'm going to hit the gong. Instead of every $250, if we can get to every $100 that we get today, I'm going to hit the gong for you guys here on Steelers Talk. All right? So that's the deal. Also, if you guys want to get your questions up on screen, you guys can super chat any dollar amount. It can be $2, $5, $10, $20. Doesn't matter. If you guys send in a donation via Super Chat, we'll make sure to get your question up on screen. If you have a Steelers topic that you want me and Ponsi to discuss and share our opinion on, if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have something that you just want to say, send in that Super Chat. We'll make sure to get you up on screen. Also, you guys can send in Venmos or PayPals. I'll double your raffle tickets to win the Steelers Talk hat today if you send in a Venmo or PayPal. You can find me at Jack-Sperry on Venmo or at Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. So if you guys want to take care of that, we'd really appreciate your support. The reason why we give you double the raffle tickets for Venmo and PayPal is because we get to keep more of the proceeds. YouTube takes a 30% cut of every dollar you send in, and then if you send it in on an Apple product, it takes another 10%. So if you guys want your donation dollars to go more towards us and not towards YouTube and Apple, who obviously already make a ton of money, every single dollar that goes our way goes towards improving the channel, all right? Improving our graphics, improving our studio space, improving our equipment, all that stuff. Obviously, it takes money, so it's certainly not a requirement to donate to the show, guys, but if you want to donate, you'll hopefully have a chance to win a Steelers Talk hat at the end of the show. So speaking of Venmos, we got a $20 Venmo from my man Jason Ballack, and he says, we need the trade for Jacoby Myers. Could we get it done for a 4th-round pick? I think, let's just put it this way. If you can get it done for a 4th-round pick, I think the Steelers are getting a steal. All right, I think that Khan is fleecing the Las Vegas Raiders if you get him for a 4th-round pick. He is a very underrated player. He's a good route runner. He's really good in the intermediate level of the field. He's a really good contested catch winner, over 60% career contested catch ball winner. So, he's the type of guy where if you inject him into the Steelers offense, that's going to be a guy that I think Aaron Rodgers can build a lot of trust with very quickly. Because I think he's going to earn it on the field with making those tough catches in those tight spaces. So he's also a really good run blocker. He brings a lot of good size to the table. He is an established veteran that knows what to do. He knows how to run routes the way that veteran quarterbacks like to have them run. So I think that that's an awesome idea, Jason. I think it's probably going to take a 3rd-round pick, though, especially to do it immediately. The Raiders, even though they're 1-3, I don't know how many teams are willing to blow up their season and start selling this far away from the deadline. The deadline isn't until November 10th, all right? So we're still over a month away from the deadline. We still got about 4 more weeks before teams really start ramping up trade talks. So, maybe if the Raiders lose another game, they go 1-4 and the season is like really over, maybe they would start thinking about Jacoby Myers. But I think because we're going to get into the Calvin Austin III injury update here in a second, but it doesn't sound like Cal's going to be gone for that long. And if that's the case, I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to rush anything here and overpay for somebody or, rush a decision at wide receiver. I do think they will probably, maybe depending on the progression of Roman Wilson, they might add another receiver before the deadline, but I think in the short term, they're probably going to stick with what they have. Then we got one for Bernard Nixon, $2 super chat, says, do you think Aaron Rodgers can still play at a high level? It seems like you ask me this every single show, Bernard, and the answer is always yes. I think that he can still play at a high level, and he has been playing at a high level. Now, is he playing at an elite MVP level? No, because he's not somebody that's capable of making the off-platform or the off-structure kinds of plays that made him an MVP. But he is somebody that is distributing the football extremely efficiently. He's getting the football where it needs to go. He's getting the ball out fast. He's throwing with really great precision and accuracy, which allows guys to catch the football in stride. The Steelers are number 1 in the league right now in yards after the catch. And when you got dynamic playmakers out in space like DK Metcalf, like Jalen Warren, like Jonnu Smith, like Calvin Austin III, you can have a lot of success, dumping the ball off underneath and then having these guys run with the football in open space, right? That's a lot better than having a 41-year-old quarterback that's an immobile quarterback at that, playing behind a pass protection unit, which, let's just be generous here and say it's been a little bit shaky, right? So I actually really like what the Steelers have done, even though Aaron Rodgers isn't slinging it all the way down the field 40 times a game. I'm okay with that as long as they're moving the football, as long as they're scoring in the red zone, as long as this offense, is moving the football at an efficient pace. I'm okay with it, and especially if the run game is going well, like it was on Sunday in Dublin. It's absolutely going to work. So I think Aaron Rodgers has been exactly the type of quarterback this team has needed, which is a high-functioning game manager. And if the run game can keep it up and the run blocking can keep it up in the weeks to come, I think that this Steelers team and this offense is going to be pretty darn hard to stop. So on today's show, we're going to get to our first segment of the day. We actually just got another $5 super chat that we'll get to here in just a second. Let's just go right to that. Vincent Dean Jr., $5 super chat, says we need a legit left tackle, not another wide receiver. And I think Vincent has a somewhat decent take here because if we get to the point where we're at the trade deadline and Calvin Austin III is back and he's healthy and he's playing well, and then Roman Wilson has stepped up a little bit and he has been showing some good things as a third wide receiver, and Broderick Jones has been, not been playing well at that point, then I think, this is something that you could potentially look at as something that the Steelers could do, is go out and get a left tackle, whether that's Braxton Jones from the Chicago Bears, Rasheed Walker from the Green Bay Packers. There's a couple of different options that we've talked about on this show that could be available. But, I think it's certainly a possibility that they get either a left tackle or a receiver, depending on how things go over the next few weeks. It's just going to depend on how Broderick Jones, Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, how these guys play over the next several weeks. And we got another one here from Big Mo. Never mind. From Bernard Nixon. My bad. He says, sorry if I did, LOL. Bernard, it's like literally every show you ask me something about Aaron Rodgers and whether or not I think that he can play. And I'm always happy to answer your questions, Bernard, but the answer, just so you know, it's always going to be yes. Unless Rodgers proves otherwise, it's always going to be yes, my friend. I appreciate your support. All right, so now let's get into our first segment of the day, the latest Steelers news and rumors. We got some big things to talk about on our news and rumors segment here tonight, guys. Then we'll get into some trade candidates. Could the Steelers trade Pat Freiermuth or even Alex Highsmith to get a top-flight receiver before the deadline? I'll talk about that possibility and my thought on that. Then we'll get into my updated Steelers record prediction after a 3-1 start heading into this bye week. All right, so first up, let's get into the news and rumors of the day right here on Steelers Talk. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. On tonight's show, the Baltimore Ravens got some devastating news that every Steelers fan should be made aware of at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into some positive. Calvin Austin III injury news. We got a very positive update on his status. Then we'll get into Kenneth Gainwell, and some people are starting to say Kenny G should be the new RB1 over Jaylen Warren. I'll share my take on that later in the show, and we'll finish up today's program with Arthur Smith speaking on the offense and why the team hasn't been throwing the ball down the field all that much to start this season off. All right, now before we get into the content today, this is the final day of the month of September, and we've been doing a month-long subscriber battle with our frenemies at the other AFC North channels here at Chat Sports. Bengals and Ravens, not so much here this month, guys, but the Browns report with new host Joey O'Donohue here at Chat Sports. He's our new Browns host, and he has really done a fantastic job. And right now, they are just 21 subscribers behind us right now. All right, we've had a fantastic month as well, but right now I can guarantee you, all right, I was listening to Joey O'Donohue, our new Browns host here at Chat Sports, talk to his audience today here at Chat Sports Studios, and he was telling them, hey, we're only 21 subscribers away. Click that subscribe button so we can beat the Steelers this month, all right? And that just can't happen, all right? We know Steelers Talk runs this division here at Chat Sports, so if you haven't already, if you're a new viewer and you want premium Steelers content every single day, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because it's only new subscribers. So no new viewers, we are counting on you guys to help us win the month of September and hold off the Browns report for new subscribers here during the month of September. All right, so now let's get into some devastating news for the Baltimore Ravens, who have started their season 1-3. They've had some really tough losses on primetime football, but now Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, two-time NFL MVP, is out 2 to 3 weeks with a hamstring injury here. He's going to miss most likely at least this week versus the Houston Texans. He's also expected to miss the Week 6 matchup versus the Los Angeles Rams, and then they're going to have a bye in Week 7, guys. So, you take a look at that schedule, and you look at the fact here that the Baltimore Ravens have Cooper Rush as their backup quarterback, and that defense is currently dead last in scoring defense in the entire National Football League. I mean, you're really hoping that C.J. Stroud and that Texans offense, which has been struggling, lays an absolute egg on the road here in Week 5, and Cooper Rush is able to win a low-scoring affair, because in Week 6, guys, I don't see really any way that defense and Cooper Rush leading the offense can beat Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. So really, if you think about it, with a 1-3 start, if they don't win against the Texans this week, man, their season could be potentially over, because right now they are 1-3. They are tied for last with the Cleveland Browns in the AFC North to start this 2025 campaign off. And with Lamar Jackson out of the lineup, and he has been by far the most important piece of their team so far this year, if Baltimore loses their next 2 games, guys, the season is over for them at 1-5, all right? Pretty much to make the playoffs, you pretty much have to make 10-7 or higher. And if you start the season 1-5, I mean, this Baltimore team is going to have to be completely dominant the rest of the way, not to mention sweep the Pittsburgh Steelers on the way to, getting to double-digit victories. But, with the defense playing as poorly as it is, it's not just Lamar that's injured, guys. You got Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphreys, Madubuike's out for the season. Like, this Ravens team right now is a complete dumpster fire, and it just got worse with Lamar Jackson out the next 2 weeks. I'm going to predict that they lose those next 2 games before they head into their bye, and I think they're going to be sitting at 1-5 heading into their bye week in Week 7, which is just devastating news if you are a Baltimore Ravens fan. But if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you're pretty happy about the fact that the Steelers are certainly in the driver's seat, at least it seems at this point in the year. Now, obviously, there's a long way to go. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to continue to play good football. They can't take anybody in this division lightly, but Pittsburgh needs to be the heavy favorite moving forward, all right, plain and simply. The Bengals don't have Joe Burrow for months, and their defense is terrible. Cleveland, they're going to be starting a rookie quarterback here soon, and their offense has been terrible. Their defense is okay, but, that's certainly not a complete football team. And then Baltimore is going to be missing Lamar Jackson for the next 2 weeks, and likely going to start 1-5 to start their 2025 campaign. So the Steelers sitting at 3-1. They get the Browns and the Bengals 2 games up next year that I think the Steelers should be favorited in. I mean, the Steelers are looking at 5-1 right in the face, and the Ravens are looking at 1-5 in the face right now. I think it's a pretty decent situation that the Pittsburgh Steelers are in right now. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What is the percent chance that the Pittsburgh Steelers win the AFC North this year, 4 weeks into the NFL season? Put it on a scale scale of 0, meaning no chance the Steelers win the division, to 100%, meaning that this thing is already locked up. The Steelers are taking this thing home. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a few seconds. When that happens and when that ad plays, go down there in the comment section and put your percent chance that the Steelers win the AFC North this year. Now, where the Ravens got bad injury news here, the Pittsburgh Steelers actually got some good news, relatively speaking, when it comes to Calvin Austin III. Ben Skoranek, fellow wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a little bit of a media availability today in Pittsburgh, and he said that Calvin Austin, quote, won't be out too long, or at least that's what he's heard with the shoulder injury that he is dealing with. So maybe a game, maybe two, it sounds like, for Calvin Austin III. And, of course, Jerry Dulac, earlier this week, we reported it on the show. We talked about it, and he says he's going to be out at least several games, is what he said in his quote, which makes it sound really bad and makes it sound like he's going to be out for like a month or something. He might be put on IR. Same thing with Jalen Ramsey, but not only does it sound like Calvin Austin III will be back after maybe a game missed or two, but it sounds like the same thing can be said for Jalen Ramsey, who's dealing with a hamstring injury as well. So I think all things considered, if you can have Calvin Austin III and Jalen Ramsey back by the time we're playing the Green Bay Packers, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Los Angeles Chargers back to back to back, and I believe it's week 8, 9, and 10 all in a row, I think that's probably the best timing to have those guys come back into the lineup. And listen, guys, maybe Pittsburgh doesn't need to force a move at wide receiver. We put out a video earlier today talking about some potential options for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the wide receiver position if they wanted to go make a move. But now that you know that Calvin might just miss 1, maybe 2 games, and those 2 games are very winnable, whether Calvin's on the field or not, against the Browns and the Bengals, I think this is a great opportunity for second-year wide receiver Roman Wilson to show what he can do. He hasn't had a lot of opportunities to be out there, first of all, and then when he has been out there, he hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities to operate within this offense that's been very quick hitter heavy. He's been out there a lot on dig routes and on go routes and longer developing concepts, and with Rodgers getting the ball out so quickly, there just hasn't been a lot of opportunities for Roman to get the football. But now that Calvin is out of the lineup these next 2 weeks, I think it provides a great opportunity for the Steelers to get a look at what Roman Wilson looks like as this team's number 2 wide receiver. And if it works out great, awesome. You can be a part of the rotation moving forward and can be a legitimate wide receiver 3. If not, then you can kind of get some confirmation as to where Roman Wilson is in his career right now, and I think you can get some clarity as to whether or not you need to add a 3rd wide receiver to this group before the trade deadline here. So I think it's an awesome opportunity for both Roman Wilson to show what he can do and for the Steelers to see what they have in Roman Wilson over the next couple of weeks. And theoretically, Roman Wilson should be able to step up, all right? Like, he's had plenty of time to learn the playbook, which was apparently an issue for him last year. He's got plenty of time to kind of develop chemistry with Aaron Rodgers at this point. And then from a physical standpoint, he's got all the tools, man. He's got 4.3 speed. He's got great acceleration. He's got really good and reliable hands. He can make catches with his hands outstretched outside of his body. So even though he's not the biggest guy in the world, he's got a bigger catch radius than Calvin Austin III has. And, he's a really good run blocker, too. That's one of the reasons why the Steelers really liked him coming out of Michigan. So, Roman's got a hell of an opportunity here to show the world and show this team what he's capable of, and I'm really hoping that he can make the most of it here over the next few weeks if he does, in fact, get that opportunity. So sound off for me down there in the comment section. Do you still believe in Roman Wilson at this point? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. My answer to that is I certainly want to believe, and I'm excited to see what he can do while Calvin is out of the lineup, but certainly there's some reason for doubt as well. So make sure you give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. And now let's shift to this discussion where I've heard some people on Steelers Twitter and even Steelers radio, like Mark Madden, for example, was saying that he thinks that the Steelers should start Kenneth Gainwell over Jaylen Warren in the Steelers' run game moving forward, because obviously it was the best rushing performance of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Warren wasn't on the field. So people that don't know ball, frankly, say, oh, well, Gainwell had the most yards for any running back this year. We haven't seen that from Jaylen Warren, so he must be better. And I just think that, this isn't taking into account the full picture, because I think the main reason Pittsburgh's rushing offense took a big step forward last week versus the Minnesota Vikings had nothing to do with the running back. And listen, Kenny played a really good game. All right, I think he's a really good number 2 running back. But the main reason I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers run game got going was because the run blocking took a huge step forward, all right, putting Spencer Anderson out there as a jumbo tight end and essentially a sixth offensive lineman. Not to mention Darnell Washington out there as another tight end, essentially 7 offensive linemen out there. Gave this team a huge advantage in the run game. And hey, Kenny Gainwell was the beneficiary of that. I thought he had a really good game, but let's be real. I mean, the first 3 weeks of the season, this offensive line couldn't run block to save their life, and Jaylen Warren was this team's offense for those first 3 weeks, making people miss, catching the football out of the backfield, making big plays happen. Without Jaylen Warren, the Steelers might not win some of those football games that they won in the first 3 weeks of the year. And frankly, guys, if Warren would have played on Sunday versus the Vikings and he had some of the holes that Kenny Gainwell had to run through, he might have rushed for 150 or more yards versus the Minnesota Vikings. He's more explosive than Kenny is. He has better contact balance than Kenny does. Obviously he can, get a little bit more with the pass catching stuff as well. Like, Kenny is a really good number 2 running back option. I don't want to make this an anti-Kenny G type of thing here, guys, but we have to give our respect to Jaylen Warren, who in my opinion is this team's best offensive player, period. All right, and most impactful offensive player. That's what he's been through the first 4 weeks of the year, and he didn't even play in one of those 4 games, right? So I think that what Jaylen Warren provides, all right, the ability to make guys miss, great vision, fantastic contact balance, explosiveness, all right, a fantastic spin move and jump cut, and the ability to catch the football out of the backfield. He's been one of the most impactful receivers for the Pittsburgh Steelers so far this season. It's not even a discussion for me, man. Jaylen Warren is this team's RB1, but hey, it's damn good to have a guy in Kenny G that can step up if needed. So who should start? Let me know down there in the comment section. Do you think J-Dub is the number 1 running back here? Type JW. Or do you think Kenny Gainwell, after a really good game in Week 4, deserves to be the RB1 moving forward and stick with the hot hand? Type KG if you think Gainwell should be getting the number 1 carries moving forward. We'll finish up today's News and Rumors edition of Steelers Talk here by talking about some interesting comments that Arthur Smith gave about why the Pittsburgh Steelers passing offense isn't throwing the ball deep and why he's perfectly fine with that at this point. I think it was a really good and interesting answer with a lot of nuance, so I wanted to share it with you guys. This is what Art had to say. There's lots of ways to create explosives. A lot of it is, and I think it helps, is when you don't have to rely on just taking shots down the field. A little shot at Russell Wilson there. And then you're seeing it. This is kind of en vogue. Lots of teams are playing hybrid shell coverages. So, if you're going to put an extra guy deep, there's usually less guys underneath. So you can, if you can go and create space and you have guys that can create explosives that way, that's great. That leads to not being in the pocket as long. There are going to be times when guys bring others up and they'll play single high, and you have to hit them that way as well, which we have. We have got 3rd and 1 or whatever. We've seen Calvin win those DKs on those 3rd downs. You get him one-on-one, you take them. There's a lot of ways to do it. So listen, man, I think this is a really good take here and a really good explanation from Arthur Smith. I think he's 100% correct, and this is something that we've been talking about on the show. People are kind of panicking like, oh, Aaron Rodgers isn't throwing the ball down the field. He's just checking it down all the time. Well, listen, man, if you have a good check down option and you have an opportunity to get the ball out to a playmaker in space early on in the passing down, that's perfectly fine, man. If you're going to be relying on these deep shots like Russell Wilson did last year, you're going to take a lot of sacks because you're holding onto the ball for longer, especially if you're playing behind kind of a shaky pass protection unit like Aaron Rodgers is. You want to find those opportunities to get the ball out fast. Also it's a higher percentage completion. So if you can get the ball to a receiver out in space in a high kind of percentage situation, that's going to lead to some really good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward. And we've seen that through these first few weeks, getting the ball out to DK Metcalf on that slant. All right, that wasn't a downfield shot. That was just a beautifully delivered slant route to DK Metcalf out in space, and then he did the rest, getting the ball out to Jaylen Warren on a screen where he can make some guys miss. Calvin Austin III can move as well. Jonnu Smith is an excellent screen threat. So I have no worries about the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers passing attack is going right now. And honestly, this passing attack fits what Aaron Rodgers does perfectly, all right? I think it fits his play style really, really well. We've talked about it on this channel. Aaron Rodgers needs to play like Drew Brees did, like Peyton Manning did, like Tom Brady did. All those guys were immobile quarterbacks, so they had to get the ball out fast. They had to beat the defense pre-snap. They had to get the ball out to their playmakers in space. And that doesn't mean you never throw the ball down the field, but we've seen Rodgers be very effective throwing the ball down the field. To Calvin Austin III, to DK Metcalf for that nice touchdown against New England, right? So we've seen Aaron Rodgers throw the ball down the field. It's just, the base of this passing attack is really based on high percentage looks underneath, especially when defenses play these two high safety shells. I think it's a really smart way to play offense. It's a really efficient way to play offense. And right now the Steelers are number 1 in the league in yards after the catch for a reason. So if you are doing those things after the catch and you have dynamic playmakers with the ball in their hands, get them the ball in their hands, in space, and let them work. I think it's an awesome plan that Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers have come up with, and I'm hoping that it continues to have success down the stretch. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comment section. The Pittsburgh Steelers will have a top 10 offense in the NFL this season. Type T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. Let me know your answer to that down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Make sure you click that subscribe button. Again, if you're a new viewer, this is the final day for our September subscriber battle in the AFC North. The Browns are right on our heels. Do not let them catch up, guys. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys. Here we go, Steelers. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are one segment in. We got about 400 people watching live. Coming up next, some trade candidates. I'm going to give my take on whether the Pittsburgh Steelers should consider trading guys like Pat Freiermuth, Alex Highsmith, and one kind of surprise name that I've put on this list as well that you're not going to want to miss. There's going to be a pretty interesting discussion coming up here, so you don't want to go anywhere. If you guys want to get on the show, just a little bit of a reminder to the people that have joined us. You guys can donate to the show. We appreciate all donations via Super Chat, Venmo, or PayPal. Every single dollar goes towards making our channel better. It goes towards equipment. It goes towards keeping the lights on and rent. It goes towards graphics, all right? So we really do appreciate all the support that you give. And if we can get to $100 in donations today, we are currently sitting at $31. So we're still about $70 away from giving away a Steelers Talk hat in a raffle at the end of today's show. But if you guys want to buy raffle tickets, $5, $10, you get 3 raffle tickets. $20, you get 10 tickets plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong. And then if we can get $100 in Super Chats total today, we will hit the gong at the end of the show. All right, so again, if you want to send in a Venmo, you can find me at Jack-Sperry on Venmo or at Captain Jackrabbit on PayPal. And I will double your raffle tickets to win the hat today if you send in your donation via Venmo or PayPal. All right, so without further ado, I'm not going to keep you guys waiting any longer. Let's get into our next segment here, guys, because I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. I've seen some people on Steelers Twitter kind of discussing whether or not it's prudent to trade Pat Freiermuth in exchange for a wide receiver before the deadline. I've also seen some people throw out Alex Highsmith's name, and then I also have one more potential trade candidate that could be a bit spicy at the end of this next video as well. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. Some trade candidates for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the trade deadline. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, I've got 3 Steelers players on the roster right now who I think could possibly be traded before the NFL trade deadline this year. All right, so these are players that are currently on the Steelers roster that I think could be sent elsewhere in a trade before the trade deadline passes on November 10th this season. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section to kick off today's show. Is there any Steelers player that you think that the Steelers should trade right now? If so, which one or ones do you think the Steelers should consider trading before the deadline? So the first thing that I want to say here, guys, and, after a 3-1 start, I think it's pretty self-evident, but I think, it's important to understand that Pittsburgh likely isn't going to be selling this year at the deadline. This is a quote-unquote win-now season for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and, if anything, they're going to be buying at the NFL trade deadline this year. But which means I think if Pittsburgh does trade a player, it's going to be as a part of a deal to get another player. Like, for example, if you want to get a top flight wide receiver and they want a certain player in return, that's when I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would maybe consider adding one of the players that we're going to be talking about today. But I really think that's the only situation, unless there's a complete collapse before the trade deadline where they lose every single one of their games before November 10th and they're selling at the deadline. The more likely scenario here is that the Steelers will be buying at the deadline. If you're looking for some of the wide receivers that the Steelers could be looking into before the trade deadline this year, we put out a video earlier this week talking about the top trade candidates and targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pursue before the trade deadline in early November. So I'll put the link to that one in the top right of today's show, as well as in the comments and description of today's program. But we'll start here with a fan favorite, and for good reason. He's a great guy, hard worker, all those things. Penn State alum, a lot of Penn State fans are Steelers fans as well. But yes, Pat Freiermuth is included on my trade candidates list. Now, I want to make abundantly clear, just because I put Pat on my list today doesn't mean that I think the Steelers 100% should get rid of him. And I'm not saying that Pat Freiermuth stinks, all right? I want to make that abundantly clear to the people watching this video. But why Muth could go it just makes sense, okay, guys, if you just follow me along here. If Pittsburgh wants to play more 3 wide receiver sets, if they don't want to play so much heavy 2 tight end, 3 tight end stuff, and they want to play more spread, more 3 wide receiver formations by the time we get to the deadline, it could make sense to include Muth in a trade to get that other wide receiver to pair with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III. And let's be honest, guys, Pat Freiermuth has not been very good to start this season, at least not very productive. All right, he only has 7 catches in 4 games, 65 yards total. Now he averages nearly a first down per catch. He's had a couple nice in-breakers to start this season off, but he has no touchdowns. He honestly got his 1 touchdown opportunity robbed from him from Calvin Austin III in Week 2 versus Seattle, but that's neither here nor there. Pat Freiermuth has not done what he's expected of given the money that he is making right now. And, just to be completely objective with the type of player that Pat Freiermuth is, he's not a difference-making player. I think he's very well-rounded. I think that he's a decent blocker. I think that he is a decent receiving tight end, but he's not like a dynamic route runner. He's not a special contested catch winner. He's not an awesome blocker like Darnell Washington is. He's just kind of okay at a lot of things, and that just kind of culminates in a pretty, serviceable starting tight end, right? He's not a star player, but yet the Steelers are paying him quite a bit of money, all right? Take a look at the highest paid tight ends. They currently are paying 2 of the top 10 highest paid tight ends in all of football, and Pat Freiermuth, of course, is included in that there. He's currently the number 9 highest paid tight end in the sport. So, for somebody that doesn't really provide any like dynamic playmaking abilities, just kind of like an okay player, you can make an argument that the Steelers are overpaying at this particular position, especially because you already have Jonnu Smith and Darnell Washington on the roster, and both of those guys have very definable roles inside the Steelers offense. And then you take a look at the upcoming cap hits for Pat Freiermuth. You have him under contract for the next 4 years. So, is Pat Freiermuth, if he's going to continue to be kind of this okay type of starting tight end, is he really worth the money that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be dishing out to him and the cap hit that he's going to be taking up over the next 4 seasons? I think that if there's an opportunity to get a big-name wide receiver and they want Pat Freiermuth in exchange for him, along with a draft pick, of course, and you can get this money off your books over the next, the rest of this season and then the next 3 seasons, I think that is something that the Pittsburgh Steelers should at least think about at this juncture, especially if we're talking about a guy like Chris Olave or Jacoby Myers, somebody that could be a legitimate, game-changing type of player for this Steelers offense. And then, you take a look at the rest of the tight end room. I think they'd be perfectly fine if they traded Pat Freiermuth away. You got Jonnu Smith as kind of that receiving type tight end, that smaller tight end to be the receiving guy and be the yak threat that he is and, play his role in the Steelers offense. But then you also have Darnell Washington, who I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to want to let go anytime soon. Like, he is a behemoth. He gives them a huge matchup advantage. He is a red zone weapon. And when his contract comes up, I think the Steelers are going to want to pay him and keep him around because, if they continue down this path of jumbo personnel with him and Spencer Anderson both out there as tight ends, which gives this run game a massive advantage, in my opinion, I don't think that's something that the Steelers are going to want to let go of. So if there's an expendable member of this tight end room, I do think it is Pat Freiermuth. And I just want to say I love Muth as a guy. I think that he's a wonderful human being. He's a hard worker. He's a great ambassador for the team. And, he is a good football player, but he's not a special football player, right? So if trading Muth helps this team get a wide receiver of the caliber of like a Chris Olave or a Jacoby Myers or somebody along that line, I'm open to the possibility of letting go of 88 and a draft pick to get that done. Now, coming up here on Steelers Talk, 2 other potential trade candidates that the Steelers could package in a deal to get a top-flight wide receiver or maybe a left tackle at the trade deadline. But before we get into the rest of today's video, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every single day. But on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from Prize Picks that is new this season that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks will not count that as a loss. Now, here's my Prize Picks lineup here for NFL Week 5 or for professional football Week 5. I'm going to take the more on passing yards, Justin Herbert. I'm going to take the more on Quentin Johnston receiving yards and the more on Zach Ertz receiving yards as well. So if you guys want to get in on the action today, you can go download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. It's free to download on your phone right now, so start an account and use that code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So now I want to talk about some of the discord surrounding Alex Highsmith, all right, because I've been seeing a lot of people say Nick Herbig's playing great football, Alex Highsmith is always injured, he's expensive, let's trade him and let's use him as a piece to get a wide receiver. And I certainly understand where people are coming from there. And, I think that is the way that he would get dealt. Theoretically, if the Steelers end up trading Alex Highsmith, it would be to aid to get a wide receiver like Chris Olave or Jacoby Myers or somebody of that line. And they would use Highsmith as kind of like the big ticket item in the deal. Like if they don't want to give up a 3rd-round draft pick, they want to keep their day 1 and day 2 draft capital, and they want to do like a 5th-round pick in Alex Highsmith for like Chris Olave, for example, that would be something that is technically possible for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that is doable for this football team. And listen, man, Nick Herbig is playing his freaking butt off, all right? He is playing unbelievable football right now, and to have a 3rd, quote-unquote, rotational edge rusher like him that can be a full-time starter if there's an injury is an ultimate luxury that the Pittsburgh Steelers have. And I love that he's here, and I want the Steelers to make sure that he is here for a very long time because he is super, super disruptive. Plus, Alex does have trouble staying healthy. I understand that point as well, all right? It seems like every single season he has an injury that keeps him out for like 4 to 6 weeks, just like this year with the issue that he's got going on right now. So I understand where people are coming from. Highsmith's making a lot of money. Nick Herbig, his extension is going to be coming up here soon. The Steelers are probably going to want to go out and get that done. But my guess here, guys, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't trade Alex Highsmith in season. All right, I don't think that is something that is going to be happening. I think that the Steelers really like having an elite edge rusher trio, and that's honestly one of the best things about this Steelers team, if not the best, is that they have the best pass rush in the National Football League. And I think the benefits of keeping Alex Highsmith on the roster are twofold. Number one, you get to maintain that elite edge trio when you're healthy, so you can rotate these guys in and out, keep them fresh as the season goes on, and not give defenses a break when you bring in your rotational edge rush group. But then also, number two, you get injury insurance in case one of your high-end guys, your starters, gets injured, right? No matter what, even if there's an injury, you're going to have a top-flight, really, really good edge rusher duo to attack opposing quarterbacks, which is a must for this Pittsburgh Steelers team if they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. Plain and simply, guys, this defense needs to be elite this season to give this team a chance against the Buffalo Bills, against teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, against teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. You got to have a complete football team, and you got to have a really good defense to be able to hoist a 7th Lombardi trophy, and having Highsmith on the team certainly helps in that regard. But I will say, I think that the talks for Highsmith in terms of a trade are going to heat up next offseason, all right, because Nick Herbig's extension is going to be up, so the Steelers might want to pay him. And then if you can get another high draft pick out of Alex Highsmith, like say someone offers a second-round pick for Highsmith or something like that, you could have a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and you could be looking really, really good at adding some really great young talent in the 2026 NFL Draft, which, by the way, is going to be held in Pittsburgh. So that would be a hell of a haul there. And, you still have T.J. Watt and Nick Herbig locked up for the future in that scenario. So I think in the offseason is probably the time where Omar Khan might think a little bit more about trading Alex Highsmith. But right now, he is a big asset to the Pittsburgh Steelers and their hopes of hoisting a Lombardi trophy. So I really don't think it's a possibility that they trade him in season. So pick one to trade for me down there in the comments section. If there's a team out there, let's say it's the Saints, and they say, you have to give us either Pat Freiermuth or Alex Highsmith in exchange for Chris Olave. Which one are you giving up today? Type PF for Pat Freiermuth or type AH for Alex Highsmith. You can also have the take that you're not giving up either one of them if you want down there in the comments section. Let me know your take down there in the comments. All right, so now my final one here. This one might be a little bit spicy, but Roman Wilson, I think, is another guy that could potentially be included in a deal for a wide receiver. All right, the reason for that is maybe there's a rebuilding team that could really liked Roman Wilson coming out of Michigan, and he's on his rookie contract, and they feel like he can be a building block for them. And maybe the Steelers just don't have a whole lot of trust and confidence in Roman Wilson. That is a possibility at this point. Now, based on the way the Steelers are talking about Roman, they seem to really like him. They seem to feel like he has a bright future, not only with them, but in the NFL as a whole. But certainly the production hasn't reflected that. And frankly, the snaps haven't reflected that for Roman Wilson. He only has 1 catch for 7 yards, obviously no touchdowns. That 1 catch came in garbage time when the defense was playing back. So it was kind of like a nothing thing. Like, he hasn't had a significant reception all season to this point. All right. So if there's a team out there that, has a veteran type of wide receiver that is heading towards a rebuild or is rebuilding right now and feel like Roman Wilson can be a building block for them moving forward, let's say they were high on him and had like a 2nd-round grade on him coming out of Michigan, to get Roman and then a decent draft pick in exchange for that veteran wide receiver too, I could see that being the piece that the other team on the other side of a trade could want in exchange for a veteran wide receiver. So, do I think it's necessarily likely that Roman Wilson gets traded away? No. I think that the Steelers really like him. I think that they drafted him as high as they did for a reason, and they want to give him every opportunity to be a success here in the Steel City. But, let's say Jacoby Myers is on the table, but the Raiders want Roman Wilson in exchange. Am I letting Roman Wilson get in the way of getting Jacoby Myers? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think I'd rather have Myers for the short-term gain than the potential long-term gain of having Roman Wilson, especially if he hasn't done anything at that point in the season. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Roman Wilson get a second contract here with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. My answer to this question is I really hope so. I think Roman is a hell of a kid. He works really hard. He cares about it. And I think that he is made of the stuff that, Pittsburgh people love out of their sports players. He's tough. He works hard. He does all those things. So I'm really rooting for Roman Wilson, but certainly it's been a shaky start to his Steelers tenure. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Make sure you type real one down there in the comment section if you made it to the end of the show. If you make it to the end of our videos, that actually tells the YouTube algorithm that you really enjoyed our show and that they should push this out to other Steelers fans like yourselves. So if you make it to the end of our videos, you're really helping us out, guys. So I want to show some love to the real ones down there in the comment section. So if you're still here, type real one down there in all caps so we can give you some love down there in the comments. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to get you guys the latest Steelers trade buzz up into the NFL trade deadline this year. So make sure you click that subscribe button for the very latest surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Second segment in the books there, Mr. Ponsi, and we got one more to go. It's my updated Steelers record prediction. I'm looking forward to sharing that with you guys because obviously 3-1 start, really good start. It hasn't been exactly pretty at times, but I think they just put together their best performance of the year. They're getting better, it seems, week after week. And maybe outside of a couple of really boneheaded, kind of weird mistakes against Seattle, we might be sitting here 4-0 right now. All right, this Steelers team has been tough to start this season. They're finding ways to win, and they're playing well when the game is on the line. And that is what NFL football is all about, is playing your best ball when it's required. This team has done that consistently. They've been extremely clutch, and hopefully they can continue to do that. But just a final reminder here, guys. We are currently sitting at $31 in donations. We have to get to $100 to be able to raffle off one of these Steelers Talk hats today. And you guys can donate to the show. We greatly appreciate any donation that comes in. We'll put you up on screen if you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have something that you want to say and you want to put it up on screen. Any dollar super chat amount, we'll put it up on screen for you today. And then if you want to get raffle tickets, obviously we have to get to $100 to even do the raffle. But $5 to get into the raffle, $10 to get 3 raffle tickets, $20 gets you 10 tickets, plus your name on the Steelers Talk Gong and gets you into Gong Squad. And if we get to $100 today, we will bang the gong to finish out today's show. All right, so let's get into our final segment here, Ponsi. Obviously, really good start, 3-1. We talked about in our first segment why the Steelers should be heavy favorites to win the AFC North because the Ravens are down in the dumps. They might be starting 1-5. The Browns are starting a rookie quarterback, and their offense is in shambles yet again this year. And then you got the Bengals, who on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, they can't do anything in Cincinnati right now. So obviously Steelers feel like right now that they're in the driver's seat for the division, but how many wins exactly are we looking at here for the Pittsburgh Steelers? All right, is it going to be good enough to get this team in contention for maybe the number 1 seed in the AFC? Is it going to get them in contention maybe for the number 2, number 3 seed so you don't have to play the number 5 seed in the first round of the playoffs, right? Because that's going to be the best wild card team. So, I think it's going to be an interesting discussion here, guys. I think that, some of the ways that we view the games on the schedule have shifted since my last record prediction. So I was really excited to get this video scripted for you guys, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get into it. My updated Steelers record prediction for 2025 is coming at you right now. Today on Steelers Talk, I'm updating my Steelers record prediction for 2025 after the Steelers have started their season 3-1 heading into their bye week this week. So a really good start. They've been playing really clutch football in the fourth quarter. They're finding ways to win. And I'm really excited to kind of go over this schedule again now that we kind of know what these matchups are going to look like. We have a month of NFL football. We know what these teams are capable of officially now. So really excited to share this with you guys here today. And if you guys want to help out the show today, and if you believe in this year's Steelers squad, make sure you guys click those thumbs up icons. If you believe in this year's Steelers team, I know that I do. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. All right, so now let's get into the results so far for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 3-1 start. You beat the Jets on the road, 34-32. Then you lose to the Seattle Seahawks, 31-17. But honestly, that game was a lot closer than what the final score shows. The defense was not playing well, but you take away a terrible special teams mistake from Caleb Johnson and a weird kind of tip ball in the red zone from Calvin Austin, and that game, that's the difference in the game. That's a 14-point swing. So the Steelers at home could have had a shot to win that game if those two things don't happen. And then you go out and have 2 really gutsy wins. You get a win in the fourth quarter, tie football game late in the game. You end up getting a touchdown late, 21-14 win versus the Patriots. And then, you dominate the Vikings. Like you're up by a lot late in the game. I think it was 24-6 at one point. They scored 2 touchdowns on you late, and then they get the ball back with less than 2 minutes with a chance to tie it. But the defense does show up big, and the team walks out of Dublin with a victory. And that's where we are. That's where we are right now, guys. We are 3-1, sitting with sole position, first place of the AFC North. And right now, the Steelers are in full control of their own destiny. If they win the rest of the games this year, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but right now, theoretically, they would be the number 1 seed in the AFC if they end up winning the rest of their football games. So everything for the Pittsburgh Steelers is in front of them at this point. So let's relook at this schedule here and kind of break down what I'm expecting from this football team moving forward. So the next 2 weeks, you get divisional opponents, Browns versus Bengals. First one here, Dylan Gabriel and the Browns. Mike Tomlin is excellent against rookie quarterbacks. They're coming off a bye. Tomlin is awesome off of a bye, and they're home, and they have the better football team. I don't expect Calvin Austin III or Jalen Ramsey to play in that game, but I still think the team is better. I'm going to have the Steelers win that game in Week 6. Then I'm also going to have them beat the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. And honestly, I think it's going to look a lot like the Bengals versus Broncos game last night at Mile High Stadium. The Bengals, I don't think are going to be able to do much. That offensive line is terrible. I think this pass rush is going to get after Jake Browning. And then that defense in Cincinnati is just absolute cheeks. And I think that Aaron Rodgers in this offense is going to be able to run the football at will. Don't think that game will be particularly close. I love the matchup between the Steelers and the Bengals at this point. But then, Week 8 versus the Packers. Really big game there at home. You got the stupid, ugly jerseys. I'm sorry, guys. I think they're ugly. I love the helmets. I hate the jerseys. And I think they're going to lose that game, guys. Unfortunately, with the pass rush that the Packers have, I think that they're going to be able to get after Aaron Rodgers pretty quickly. I think that Packers offense with Matt LaFleur, really, really good play caller, is going to be able to take advantage of some of the schematic things that the Steelers defense does. And I think that it might be a close one. I think it'll be competitive, but I think the Packers come away with a win at Acrisure Stadium. And then, unfortunately, another great play caller is coming to Acrisure in Week 9, and Shane Steichen, and even without Daniel Jones, who has been playing really good football, like with Joe Flacco and some of these other quarterbacks that Steichen has had over the years. He has had a lot of success against this Steelers defense. They got a good run game, a good offensive line, a quarterback that can get the football where it needs to go, good weapons, and a very underrated defense. That Colts team is a bona fide playoff team in the AFC this year, in my opinion, and the Colts and Shane Steichen seem to have the Steelers' number. So, unfortunately, I have the Colts winning on the road there in Week 9. And then another tough game. You're going on the road to the Chargers, a really physical football team. Joe Alt, their left tackle, is expected to be back by that point in the year. And Justin Herbert's playing some really great football. He was playing really good against the Steelers defense last year in Week 3 before he got injured, and Steelers kind of got lucky having to play Taylor Heineke the rest of that football game. But Herbert, is an awesome quarterback. I think he's going to be able to throw the ball down the field pretty successfully in that one. And then the Chargers defense is really good as well. So I think that is 3 straight losses for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they start 5-1, but then they go to 5-4, and I think people will start at that point to start calling the Steelers a little fraudulent. But then you get the Bengals again in Week 11, this time at home, and I think that they will sweep the Pussycats this year. You're not expected to have Joe Burrow back by that point. I still think that the pass rush is going to win that matchup. I don't believe in Jake Browning to overcome that. And again, that defense is absolutely terrible. So yes, I do expect the Steelers to sweep the Cincinnati Bengals this year. So coming up next here on Steelers Talk, I am predicting the final stretch. And of course, I'm revealing my updated final record prediction for our Pittsburgh Steelers here in just one moment. But before we get into the rest of today's video, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but not every single one of those decisions gets you paid. But being right on Prize Picks, which by the way is free to download on your phone right now, can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my Prize Picks lineups in all season long, whether it's college or professional football. I love playing Prize Picks. It just makes things a lot more fun, in my opinion. So Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks also puts all their users first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Prize Picks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And one thing that I absolutely hate, guys, is when you put in one of these plays and then you get an injury and you end up losing the projection because of that. Well, with the new injury reboots function on Prize Picks this year, if someone leaves in the game with an injury in the first half and doesn't return, that will not count against your play. So it's an absolutely fantastic thing, guys. Here's my projection for this week's professional football action here, taking the more on passing yards for Justin Herbert, the more on Quentin Johnson receiving yards, and I'm taking the more on Zach Ertz receiving yards as well. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the free Prize Picks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks today. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So now we all know Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears, and I think in what is probably going to be his last game at Soldier Field, I think it's only fitting that he beats Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, I should say, and the Chicago Bears. I think Caleb Williams is going to be very confused going up against Mike Tomlin's defense for the first time, and I think that Rodgers will have another good performance in the Windy City. Then we get to the Bills game at home, and it's another home loss that I'm projecting here. Josh Allen and the Bills have done a really good job against the Steelers defense over the years. I expect another big performance from the reigning MVP. I think the Steelers can compete in that football game, but I think right now if I had to put my life on it, I would pick the Buffalo Bills to come out on top. But then week 14 at the Ravens, I'm going to pick the Steelers to win this football game on the road in a big statement victory. At that point, they're going to have a lot of the players that they have injured right now back from injury. They might be a completely different football team than the 1-3 team that they are right now. But I think that this Ravens team is the worst iteration of the Ravens we've seen in a long time, definitely since the first year of the Lamar Jackson era. And I think that the Steelers have done a good job against Lamar, even with better teams, all right? So I think that the Steelers will have success against Baltimore this season. Then week 15 at home against a Dolphins team that is definitely soft in the conditions. I expect that to be a cold weather game. Of course, it's at home. I think the Steelers win that game as well. Then week 16 at the Lions, tough place to play, really creative offense. I'm going to have that one be another competitive loss for the Pittsburgh Steelers, all right? I certainly think that the Steelers can win that football game, but I think Detroit is a really tough place to play, a really tough opponent with a really good offense. So if I had to bet on it right now, I would pick the Lions to win that football game. But then in week 17, yes, I'm going to have the Steelers sweep the Cleveland Browns as well. And then I'm actually going to have them sweep the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm going to have them have a full clean sweep of the AFC North this year. And I know that's extremely rare. I'm sure, by the end of the season, we'll have at least one divisional loss. But I just really believe in the matchups that the Pittsburgh Steelers have against these football teams. And honestly, I would say the matchup that I like the least is the Cleveland Browns because of the pass rush that they have versus the Steelers' offensive line. Dylan Gabriel is even just okay. They might have a shot, especially at home in week 17, but I am going to have them win those final two games. I think that the Steelers' defense is built to beat the Baltimore Ravens' offense. All right, I know that sounds weird because they ran all over us at the end of last season, but remember TJ Watt was down. They bring in Jalen Ramsey. They're playing Deshaun Elliott a lot differently this year. I think they have curated this defense to beat the Baltimore Ravens, and like I said, I think that is the worst Ravens team we've seen in quite a while. So if you've been following along, that means an 11-6 record for your Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, man, you take a win from the Green Bay game that I'm projecting a loss for. If you take a win from the Colts game, from the Charger game, which is a winnable game in my opinion, if you take one of those tougher games down the schedule there and you turn that into a win, you're looking at a 12-5 record for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But honestly, guys, I think 11 wins should be enough to win the AFC North this year. All right, I do think that Cooper Rush and the Ravens will lose the next two games that Lamar Jackson is out for, making them 1-5. And I just don't know if I see that defense with the way it's playing turning things around in a major way where they're winning, like dominating down the stretch the way that they would need to catch up to the Steelers to win the division. And then Cleveland, rookie quarterback, an offense that is not doing anything. I don't see them getting up to 10 or 11 wins, and I don't see Cincinnati doing that either. They can't do anything on either side of the ball right now. So I think 11 wins would probably pretty comfortably get the Steelers the AFC North championship. And it kind of the range that I see for the Steelers right now, when I went through the schedule, I could see them getting as high as 12-5, and I could see the floor being still as low as 9-8. Like if the run game regresses heavily, if there's an injury to somebody significant, if the defense in the pass rush, gets injured, or the coverage doesn't get better on the backside for the Steelers passing defense, I could see this team lose quite significantly a lot of games down the stretch because they play some tough teams. But like I said, my projection right now is that the Steelers will win 11 games for this season, and they will be AFC North champions, which means a home playoff game in Pittsburgh this year. And I think that's something that has gone very underrated during this stretch, that the Steelers have gone without a playoff victory. During this stretch, since they made the AFC Championship game all those years back and haven't won a playoff game since, they've only had, I believe, one home playoff game during that stretch, and they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. Of course, Leonard Fournette ran all over this defense. And, obviously, home field advantage is a big deal in the playoffs. And the fact that the Steelers have had to go to places like Buffalo and Baltimore and Kansas City, and not only do you not have the quarterback play and the offensive play to be able to compete with those teams, but you also don't have the home field advantage for those games. But, you go in there as either like the 3 or the 4 seed with a home field advantage here in a postseason game. I think that significantly increases the chances that this Pittsburgh Steelers football team can finally deliver at least one playoff victory. And as I like to say, if you can win one playoff game, you can win multiple. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are setting themselves up for that playoff success this season better than they have in any of the previous seasons since 2017. All right, 2017 was really the height of the Killer Bee era. Of course, that was when they lost to the Jaguars at home, and they haven't recovered since. But I think that this team, with Aaron Rodgers playing really smart football, with the way that they ran the football versus the Minnesota Vikings, with the jumbo personnel that I think is going to be a mainstay here in Pittsburgh this year. I think that will be the identity of the Steelers offense. And then you got the pass rush, and you've got Jalen Ramsey and Deshaun Elliott doing their thing, and you're going to get Joey Porter Jr. back. I just feel like this team is the best team that the Steelers have had in a very long time, and they're going to be in position to potentially go on a run and try to make a run at this, man. I really do believe that at this point in time. But you predict it for me down there in the comments section. Is this the year that the Pittsburgh Steelers finally win a playoff game? Give me a yes or no down there in the comments section. At this juncture right now, if I'd have to guess right now, I would answer this question with a yes. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. I hope you enjoyed my updated record prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Make sure you let me know your record prediction for the Steelers down there in the comments section. I'm at 11-6 right now. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more Steelers news and rumors coverage all throughout the 2025 season. All right.
I believe you forgot a game there, Sperry.
Did I forget one?
Steelers hosted in 2020 against the Browns.
Oh, yeah. Fuck. Why did I think that was in Cleveland?
No, I mean, it felt like it because, I think there was very little fans.
You know what it was? It was the Week 18 game in Cleveland that they lost that I'm thinking of, and then they went back to Acrisure and lost. I'm an idiot for saying that. But, yeah. Obviously, home field advantage is a big deal, all right? And you haven't won an AFC North championship since that 2020 season, where, of course, the Browns came into our house and ended the season of Big Ben. And
without a head coach.
Without a head coach, exactly. So it was very disappointing. And, but the point remains, though, Ponsi, that, it's tough to go into Arrowhead. It's tough to go into Buffalo. It's tough to go into Baltimore and beat those teams on the road in the postseason. And I think, back in 2020, when you did lose at home, you had a team that was deteriorating down the stretch, all right? You had Big Ben could not throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, it seemed like, at that point. That team was just not a playoff caliber team. Once we got to the playoffs, you had that great winning streak at the beginning of the year.
11-0, right?
I believe it was either 10 or 11. I can't remember. But, yeah, man, it was just a very disappointing end to the season, of course. And then, I just feel this year, Ponsi, I really do, that if this team can stay relatively healthy and you get into the postseason, you have a home playoff game, which right now looks really, really likely, honestly. Like the Ravens, it looks like their season could be over this week if they lose to the Texans. And then the Bengals season appears over without Joe Burrow. And then you got the Browns, and unless, Dylan Gabriel comes out of nowhere and is good right away.
He's the savior of the Cleveland Browns franchise.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, the team I'm actually afraid of the most right now in this division is the Cleveland Browns because of the defense that they have.
Yeah.
The Ravens don't have a good defense this year, man.
My whole take is, and this is the scary thing, is that you kind of want to have Joe Flacco in the game against the Browns or against the Steelers just because he is out of it. He's gone. Even looking back at it, the 2023 season when he led the Browns to the playoff, he could at least throw the ball down the field. He's washed. He's completely out of it. So I think, Dylan Gabriel, if he could be a high-end game manager, the Browns team kind of looks a little bit better just because of that defense.
Yeah, that defense is – that pass rush with Myles Garrett is legit.
Dangerous.
Got some super chats. I think just one super chat, right?
We got two. Two
super chats here. So Bernard says $2. I wish the Steelers can finish off games better. Bernard, they've finished off games pretty well, man. They got 2 big stops against the Jets in the fourth quarter to finish that game, not to mention the clutch field goal from Boz. Then against the Patriots, you drive down the field to take the lead with that touchdown to Calvin, and then you get the stop on Drake May at the end. And then last week against Minnesota, you let them back into the game, but then, when they had a chance to go down the field and tie it, I mean, they were, 30 yards away from legitimately having a shot at the field goal there?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were 20 just because that penalty, the intentional grounding,
Yeah.
kind of took them out of it.
Yeah, true. And then the defense showed up at the end. All right, they got the job done. So they've actually played, I think, pretty well at the end of games, Bernard, and that's why they've won. Now, obviously, you make some pretty bad mistakes late in the game against Seattle, but I think for the most part, this has been a pretty gritty football team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously, I think, the whole theme that what Bernard is going for is just to, putting the foot on the gas more so of, you had that big lead against Minnesota, finish the game. And I think that's more so of where his frustration comes from, and I get that.
I do. But, you do have that busted coverage that didn't help anybody. That's 81 free yards that the Steelers defense gave them.
Said, 3 weeks of consecutive Darius Slay busted coverage? Or is it 4
weeks? 3 out of the 4 weeks.
3 out of the 4.
3 out of the 4 weeks. There was a busted coverage in week 1 versus the Jets. There was a busted coverage against Seattle. And then there was a busted coverage from Slay last week as well. So, you cut out that stupid mistake from Slay, and that game is not as close as it is at the end, because that completely just expedited the process for Minnesota to score points. So I'm not too worried about it, Bernard. I think this team has actually done a pretty darn good job finishing games. The one thing that I do wish is that Mike Tomlin would be a better game manager.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's a great team leader, but I think he's awful at managing the game, all right? And for whatever reason, he's got 18-plus years of experience doing this shit, and he's still terrible at it. I mean, 4th down and goal from the 3, we're they're playing goal line defense. Let's run it into the teeth of their defense when we have one of the best red zone quarterbacks in the league. Hate that play call. And then not to go for it on 4th and inches when you have a run game that was as good as it was all day long, and to punt it away. When your defense has a lot of, especially your secondary has a lot of injuries, it just feels soft at times from Mike Tomlin, man.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. You look at guys like Dan Campbell and all these guys that go for it on 4th down, and they're very aggressive. Mike Tomlin might be the most conservative head coach in the league, because Ponsi, back in his day when he was hired as a head coach, you would punt it on 4th and inches. You would do that. That was the normal strategy. And I don't think Tomlin has anyone in the building to be like, you know what, the new analytics stuff, let's get this implemented. Let's be more aggressive. Let's go and win football games as opposed to punting away. But it certainly seems like, Tomlin is not interested in that shit. And he wants to do things his way.
I think, with those older coaches, they come from a different breed of okay, this is the way that we did it. This is the way that we did it. And I mean, even so, a lot of the older coaches, we saw Belichick kind of fail to adapt to analytics. And I think analytics have been making 4th down a lot more reasonable, where it's 4th and inches they were at the 48 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And, go for it, you win the game. And the math is, okay, they still have to drive down the field just to tie. And it's just we really don't want to be giving the ball back.
You want to just go for the kill shot. You want to go win the football game. Exactly. All right. You don't want to play not to lose it, right? You want to go win the football game and be aggressive.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's kind of the point of Tomlin's philosophy that's really flawed. And I mean, you just got to be aggressive for that. I loved when Aaron Rodgers waved him off whenever they were trying to get the field goal in the first place of hey, no, let's go for it. And then they call that play call. Yeah, where they just run the ball up the middle.
Against the goal, which, by the way, I've seen people argue that running the ball there was the right decision. It's you're at the 3.5 yard line. That's kind of a long ways to go, especially when you're going up against goal line defense. All right, they're playing goal line. So what I would have done is I would have gotten the jumbo package out there with the big boys, DK, Muth, Darnell, all these guys, the big guys that are matchup problems for the defense, put them out there, out wide, and shotgun, and then throw up a fade to whoever you want to throw it up to.
And draw a flag.
You could draw a flag there, get a new set of downs. Rodgers is going to throw a perfect fade ball, and you're going to have a size advantage over somebody.
I mean, it's just
so that seems like the smart move to me, Ponzi. But running the football, I know they were running it great, but Kenneth Gainwell's not a power back, all right? And you are really depending on that offensive line to drive the line of scrimmage backwards multiple yards. And I thought they actually did a pretty good job run blocking on that play. It's just you needed another yard of pushing the defensive line back, and that's just tough to do when they have their goal line set in. So I didn't agree with the play call. I get that you were running the football effectively at that point, but I didn't agree with that play call at all.
I saw some people on Steelers Twitter going like, okay, well, they ran the ball just because they wanted to pin them even deeper. Like, how does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense because you're already down at the 3. Like, what's the difference between 97 or 99?
That's the whole point. It's like, oh, well, if they don't get it, they'll be at the 99-yard line instead of 97. Okay? Like, you're not putting your team in a position to win. You're playing scared. Yeah. And that's what Mike Tomlin's been doing.
Tremaine Terry. Tremaine, man, he says, if you predict us to lose all of our home games except one, how do you think we can win a home playoff game against a good team? Make it make sense. I'm pretty sure I predicted them to win more than one home game the rest of the way.
Let me double check this.
In fact, I know I did. I picked them to beat Cleveland in Week 6 at home. I picked them to beat Cincinnati at home Week 11. I have them winning at home versus Miami in Week 15. Yeah, we can look at it right now. Home win projected Week 6. Home win projected Week 11. Home win projected against Miami in Week 15. And then home win versus the Ravens in Week 18. So I have 4 projected wins, Tremaine, at home. But yeah, man, and by the way, I think the Steelers can win against Green Bay. I think they can win against Buffalo. It's just right now, I think that the slight advantage would go to those teams. And the reason for that, in Green Bay's case, is because they have a great pass rush and they have a great play caller. Usually when teams have those two things, they can beat the Steelers. And then the Bills game, they have Josh Allen, So, that's Josh Allen's always difficult to beat. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 seed in the conference, right? So I don't think it's impossible that the Steelers can win these games at home, and I don't think it's impossible they could beat Indianapolis, right? Daniel Jones, is he going to be able to hold up against the Steelers pass rush? I don't know.
And in fact, you have them going 4-3 in their home games.
Yeah, I have them. Yeah, I have them with a winning record down the stretch.
I mean, you're going to lose home
at
games.
home.
You're going to lose home games. You're going to lose games you shouldn't.
And by the way, I said as well, I think the ceiling of this team is 12-5 right now. If you get a Chris Olave, or if if Broderick Jones turns into a good football player, this could change. I'm just saying right now, with the way the Steelers have played and the way that I kind of expect them to play moving forward, these are the games I expect them to win, and the games that maybe I would expect the opponent to win. All right, I think 11-6 is a good record.
Yeah, I mean, that's a quality record, and I think,
And it gets you a home playoff game. And if you're at home, you have a chance to win in a playoff game.
If we think the AFC North is going to be this bad, which I see it, because the Ravens, I had them, higher on our power rankings just because, I thought, Lamar was going to be still there. And Lamar changed the whole team. Now that he's out for 2 weeks, potentially more, that team is, starting 1-5. You have to claw your way back up. You have to win out.
Yeah.
And I think that, with that defense, I think the Steelers could potentially just, clinch the division by an early week just because of how bad the AFC North is.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a good point right there. This defense is not good at all. Why was Jeremy coming in here, by the way?
I have no idea. I think they were going to talk crap about the Padres because they lost, but I don't know what happened. He looked at me, he pointed at me, and I was like, I don't know.
All right, we got another one here from Justin. Says, Yo, Jack, I have trouble understanding the point of 2 $12+ million tight ends. I thought both of them would equal one number 2 receiver, but combined they aren't getting wide receiver targets. WTF. Well, honestly, the number 2 receiver in this offense to this point has been Jaylen Warren.
Yeah.
You know where those targets went to Jaylen Warren. But I see where you're coming from here, Justin, because and this is why we put Muth in our trade candidates video today, is when you have 2 tight ends, it's tough to separate versus man coverage.
I think we expected the Steelers to run the ball a lot better than they have.
Outside of last week. What they did the first few weeks of the season was they tried running the football with Jonnu and Muth out there, and it just wasn't working as well as it was with Spencer and with Darnell. I think they kind of found that once you put Spencer out there and once you put Darnell out there and you run to that side of the formation, that's the winning sauce right there, all right? Like Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, they're bigger receivers is what they really are.
And Jonnu Smith's never really been a run blocker.
Exactly. So I think that the Steelers have kind of figured that out. But the problem with that is that it's going to mean less reps for Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, and you're paying those guys a lot of money. So, like, my thinking here is if you have an opportunity to unload Pat Freiermuth's contract, especially if you can unload that contract while simultaneously adding a good wide receiver to the team, I think that's a very smart move. Now, listen, man, I get why people wouldn't love that idea. I get why I love Pat Freiermuth. He's a great guy, man. He's awesome. Works hard, a great ambassador for the team and for the brand and all that stuff. But, like, sometimes it just makes more sense to let somebody go. Yeah, and I'm not saying cut him. That's not what I mean by that. I'm saying if you can get a high-end wide receiver in exchange for him and a pick, like a Jacoby Myers or a Chris Olave, somebody that can create separation versus man coverage, all right, that I think that would be something that would really help this team. Not to mention it gets one of your expensive tight end contracts off the books. And also it opens up money in the future to retain Darnell Washington, which might be important here coming up. So, I think if there's an opportunity and if there's a team out there that's willing to take on Pat Freiermuth, and by the way, Muth on like a well-run team with a good weapons around him, he can be a very solid piece to an offense.
I feel like, it's the same thing with, like, I don't think the Steelers are really using him to his full capability, but I don't think that they need to. If that makes sense. Like, I feel like, if they're going to try to run the block.
Unfortunately, I just don't think he's that dynamic.
Yeah, you really don't think so?
He's not a crazy, amazing athlete.
I feel like,
he's not a crazy, amazing blocker. He doesn't have an outstanding contested catch rate.
He's like more of a safety blanket.
Yeah, exactly. He's a safety blanket type of tight end. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, when you have a need at receiver and you could use another guy that could separate versus man, you already have two tight ends that work with your system. Essentially, you're using one of your offensive linemen as a tight end anyways in Spencer Anderson. Like,
yeah. I feel like,
I just feel like if you can get like a Chris Olave type of receiver or a Jacoby Myers type of receiver and that team wants Pat Freiermuth in the deal, Pat Freiermuth is not going to stop me from making that deal happen.
And then Beeman said, Muth is still worth more than Olave. No need to pair him with a draft pick if we're trading him. I disagree with that. I don't think
I disagree with that a lot. Chris Olave, when he's on the field, and I get the concussion concerns, all right? I get it. But like when he's on the field, he is a star wide receiver. Pat Freiermuth is not a star, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
I think we thought that Muth was going to be in there for more of the seam balls, get those use his height to his advantage, use his size. But Darnell Washington's been kind of the fade ball / seam guy so far. He's been running those seam routes.
And then Jonnu has had a couple of those as well. There's just so many mouths to feed at tight end, and to Justin's point, they're not feeding them enough to justify the strategy that they're doing right now, paying both of these guys what they're paying them.
I feel like,
and it's not that I hate Pat Freiermuth or think that he's a bad guy or a bad player. I think he's a good football player. It's just he's a safety blanket. He's not a dynamic threat like maybe a Brock Bowers is at tight end, right? He's not a specialty player either. He's not somebody that like Jonnu Smith, for example. You get him the ball on screens and on yak opportunities, or like Darnell, who's a blocking specialist. He's just kind of okay at everything.
Yeah.
And, that's not somebody that you call a star. Chris Olave is one of the premier route runners in the league. He really increased his contested catch rate last year. I get the concerns with the concussions, but like Chris Olave injected into this offense where teams have to worry about his route running ability along with the speed of Calvin Austin III and DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
That's just, that makes this offense way better than what it is right now with Pat Freiermuth.
And I see some commentary here saying that we were kind of goading up Muth in the preseason. I just think that we thought he was going to be a little bit better so far.
I thought his connection with Rodgers was going to be a lot better because Rodgers typically is really good with tight ends. Like Bob Tunyon had 10 touchdowns.
Robert Tunyon, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Tunyon. He had 10 touchdowns in a season with Aaron Rodgers, and I thought that connection would be going a little bit better. But now that we watch him on film, Pat Freiermuth is not really separating versus man. He's had some big drops and some big mistakes as well.
Like that one play, was it against Seattle? Where
it was New England.
Where he didn't find the open space. And that's your whole job as a safety blanket. Find the open space, settle.
Yeah.
And he did it.
Like we said, this isn't like, oh, Pat Freiermuth sucks. All right, that's not the argument being made here. Like, Pat Freiermuth is a great guy, great play, maybe not great player. He's a good player. But, like, if you have an opportunity to get Chris Olave and to switch those two chess pieces on this offense, I am taking that deal every single day of the week, all right? Like, I understand the risks involved with Olave, but honestly, like, the ceiling for this offense goes up a lot higher with Olave than Freiermuth, in my opinion. Yes, exactly. $5 from Justin Yankuski says, Herbig is a beast. What about trading Muth and Highsmith for a top-tier wide receiver? Both of them?
I feel like that's an overpay. You have to be getting a draft pick back.
And Justin, I don't know if you saw our second segment today, but I don't think the Steelers are going to be trading Highsmith. All right, at least not until next offseason. Because I think the Steelers love having their kind of edge rusher trio. I think they love that shit because, A, you can keep guys fresh and still have an awesome duo at edge all the time when everyone's healthy. And then if someone gets hurt, you can still have a starting duo at edge that is excellent. When teams play the Steelers, they don't get a break at edge rusher, ever. All right? So I think they really like having that three-man rotation. And frankly, if this team's going to win a Super Bowl this year, they have to have an excellent defense and an excellent pass rush. If you get rid of Highsmith and then Herbig or Watt goes down with injury, then you have Jack Sawyer coming in to start. And I don't think we want that, all right? Like, Jack, I'm glad he's here. He's doing some really good stuff on special teams. He's a decent rotational piece when a guy's injured. But, like, if you're asking him to start, I mean, this goes from a really dynamic edge rusher duo to just TJ Watt, all right? In terms of, like, who's going to really threat the quarterback. So, I don't think this year a Highsmith trade is going to happen. Next offseason, I think the trade talks become real because I think there's teams out there that would give a second-round pick or, at least a third-round pick for Alex Highsmith, and the Steelers can get that contract off their books. They can use that money to pay Herbig. They can replenish that third rotational edge spot in the draft or free agency, and they can start putting a little bit more of the money on the offensive side of the ball moving forward. So I think that a Highsmith trade next offseason makes a lot of sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense right now. I think if you want to trade Muth and like a mid-round draft pick for a receiver, I think that that's perfectly fine. But Highsmith, I really don't think he's going to be traded. All right, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by and talking some Steelers football with us here. We're going to be back again live on Thursday. All right, so our new live schedule, we're going to be going live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No more Monday live shows. All right, Tuesdays and Thursdays is when we are going to be going live during the NFL season. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to have some more great Steelers content coming your way all throughout the week. So for the latest Steelers buzz, news and rumors, all that great stuff, click that subscribe button. We'll see you guys next time. And until then, here we go, Steelers.